Senator Joel.
Thank you. Welcome, Madame Bergeron. I would like to come back on your comments about the test of an alternative electronic voting process. I remember at this committee when we approved that some years ago, the reason why we wanted to be involved in as a parliamentarian to approve the electronic voting system, it is because it would be a major change in the system. We would go from, you know, what I call an handwriting system and counting the ballots and whatnot to an electronic system whereby everything would be, you know, computerized, let's put it that way, to make it easy to understand. And we thought that at that time that it would be such a change in the system that cannot be taken out of the I should say, understanding and acceptance of parliamentarians. That was essentially what there is behind the alternative electronic voting system, and I insist here on electronic. What the concern you have, the way I understand it, and that's why I wanted to address first to you, is this in your mind when you think about a system to make it easier for people with the impairment of reading the ballot? Is it an alternative system that is not necessarily electronic, or in your mind is it electronic as the alternative system? You understand the nuance that I put to you?
Yeah, I think so. For people with vision loss today, electronic speech synthesis, braille outputs, they are a source of independence and freedoms for us. Mm-hmm. But the first time somebody handed me an iPhone, I said, that's no good. It doesn't have anything tactile. I can never use that. Yeah. Now I go nowhere without my iPhone. Yeah. Because it's given me so much independence and freedom. Yeah. And the ability to do things, even GPS. Mm-hmm. I pull out my phone, I shake it if I'm lost, and it tells me where I am. It's amazing. Yeah. I barely need sighted people anymore.
You're better informed than any one of us.
But the interesting thing for me is that there's other options. There's low-tech options. I can't tell you what all those options are right at the moment, mm-hmm. Because it depends on the person. I'm a Braille reader, but only a small population of people who are blind or partially sighted read Braille.
I see.
Large print will work for somebody else. It won't do any good for me, given that I have no sight at all.
Yes, see.
What I can tell you is in the last federal election, I went there to vote. I was by myself, just me and my dog, and I requested assistance with voting. They provided me with a very nice individual to help me vote, and they took me in. I told them who I wanted to vote for. They checked off my ballot. We submitted it, and I left, and I thought, yeah, I wonder who I voted for, because I have no idea who that person is. I had never met them before. So I have to just trust that they did the right thing. And I believe they did the right thing. But I don't know that. And it's a democratic right to be able to do that in secret and in private and independently.
Yeah, the proposal you made, and by the way, you were fortunate to meet with the minister, both of you, because you didn't meet with the chief electoral officer, so you're a very influential person in
my
relation
dog is
to
cuter.
that bill. That's what we heard this afternoon when we heard the testimony of the chief electoral officer, so congratulations, you're very influential. The point you propose, in fact, would not be covered by this bill because according to Section 20 of it, and that's what we heard from the former Auditor General, Madame Fraser, who testified before you, the Chief Electoral Officer would have to obtain Treasury Board approval for any initiative that he would want to take in order to propose an alternative system to meet your requirement, because according to Section 20 now of that proposal, he would not be free to move on. He would have to request the approval that he didn't have to do before. And of course he would have to request the money also, because that would probably go through a testing and so on. It would need some visibility study and so on. So the bill would not answer your concern the way that it is drafted, certainly unless I misread it. Do you share that conclusion? Are you requesting that we amend specifically the bill to give way to your request?
I am not a lawyer, so the wording for that section, I can't make recommendations on that. What CNIB's focus is to make sure that people who are blind or partially sighted can vote independently and secretly. How that happens, we don't believe that there's going to be the opportunity for that to happen unless the wording in this bill changes to be more directive and to require that the chief electoral officer does that. If he is required to do the testing, then my assumption would be at the other end that the provision of the finances in order to do that testing would then be made available.
Okay. Do I have another question?
Quick one.
Thank you. Mr. Earle, I'm very interested by your suggestion because, as I said to our colleague, Senator Fromm, I was surprised when I went to vote 2 weeks ago because I vote for the election date as it was allowed because I could not be myself available Monday. I was surprised to see on the ballot the picture, the photo of the candidates. And I thought that it was a great improvement. And the only comments I made myself when I left the ballot box, I said, what about if there would be 20 people? So, because there were only 4 candidates in the riding where I was voting. But I think it's immaterial as a comment. I think the important thing is that people be able to see. And if I have some suggestion to you, there are countries around the world, and I don't want to name some, where the level of literacy, of course, is rather low, and they vote. And they have found system to meet, that situation, to address that situation. So I think when there's a will, there's a way. And as you said, and I share totally your principle, the approach should be to make the voting easier and not to restrict it, and to adapt the voting to the physical condition of the person, or I would say to the capacity of the person in relation to read the name. Because as you know, the literacy problem is a real problem in Canada. It's the best kept secret of the country, as you know. In Quebec, there are 800,000 people who suffer from that situation. But nobody wants to talk about it because it's like, shameful. And it happens to me sometimes to meet people on the street and they ask me where they are and they cannot even read the sign of the street above their head. So I'm sure you know it. So the question is, how can we approach the changes to the Act to make sure that we make the voting easier? And to me, in some of those cases, the vouching is the answer.
Absolutely, and on a joke note, I bet you supported the Quebec Party in this election. No,
I didn't think about the proportional vote. I'm just thinking here about the access to vote.
Look, vouching is vouching is a huge thing, and so what I'm saying and what we're saying is sure, you may not have those ballots, and sure, you may not have stuff at election day or whatever may be the case. I like to think it's a lot more simpler than that, and perhaps it's not. But people who know best is people who face that challenge each and every day, that know the challenges, especially when it comes down to literacy. So taking vouching away, so not only if they can't see the ballots or understand on whose party, you're now saying, so that person can't have support as well because they can't vouch for that person. Right? And I've worked municipal, provincial, and federal elections. And it has come a long way. Accessibility is something Canada can be very proud of. But eliminating vouching in this act will only create more barriers for people. And quite frankly, you're going to see the voting go down. Despite what people may say that it could go up, I'm telling you, from our perspective, you're going to see it go down because then people if they can't understand right now, our board has always been about plain language and putting things in better language for people to understand. and not everybody has an organization to go to, whether it be CNIB, People First or anything like that, to get assistance with that, then I question, is it our duty to do that? I mean, sure, it could be our duty to educate, but that's where we have elected officials as well, to ensure that the act is properly monitored. Any act that you change affects people's lives. I can't tell you right now what the act's, when the act's approved, what it's actually going to be like until it's actually done. And that can be very scary at some levels because we don't know until it changes. I get recognized, people don't like changes, but eliminating vouching from that is definitely going to hurt a lot of people. And I brought up anxiety attack as well.
I'm going to, yes, we've got about 5 questioners left in about 15 minutes, so I encourage members to keep that in mind, and the witnesses as well, so that we can hopefully get all of the questions on and answered.